There are 1,000 stories in the Envisioners' future. This is just one of them. Well, hello, how the devil are you? Dave Coplin here, back with another Dialing into the Future of Work live stream for you, talking about amazing things. Clearly, Christmas has arrived in the studio, and as well it should, because it's feeling like one of those years. We are, over Christmas, going to do a series of shows. Some of them will be pre-recorded, some of them will be live. This one tonight actually is live. And what I wanted to do was a couple of things. Basically pull together a bunch of people who so kindly over the year have donated their time and their energy and their ideas and their enthusiasm to build what you see in front of you today. So these are what I'm calling close friends of the show, people who've been with us from the beginning, who come and see us regularly, talk to us about what's going on. And I wanted this to be a time to both reflect on the experience of 2020 and also start to look forward to predict out into 2021. This week I am absolutely delighted to have two very good friends on the show with us. We've got Gary. How you doing, Gary?
Hi Dave, good to see you again.
And we've got our dear friend Ade McCormack. Ade, how you doing?
Great, thanks Dave. Delighted to be here.
And yeah, you say that now, Ade. Give it about 25 minutes, and I hope you still feel the same way. So look, I'm really thrilled that you guys could come here, because the other thing that, you know, and if you'll indulge me, right? If you think about the journey, we started back in April. And Ade, I mean, I think you were on with us early as well, but it was a webcam, and I nicked the green screen out of my son's live stream setup, and we were winging it. We're still winging it, clearly, but things have progressed. We're looking a bit better, so I'm pretty pleased about that. And despite all of the horrible chaos and the horrible destruction that's happening in the pandemic, we've managed to keep something moving here, and you guys have been a massive part of that. So I want to say thank you. So I wanted to start on reflections and thinking about 2020, and I wanted to think about sort of, in a sense, our personal learnings. I'd be interested in the things that you've learned about yourself in 2020, and also about the learning that you've got about how the market has changed. And I was wondering, Ade, if I might pick on you, and maybe the market is a good place to start. You know, talk us through your reflection of where the market is. And I've been quite broad when I've said market. You can take that in any direction you'd like to.
Yeah, I suppose one of the things that I've noticed is that Silicon Valley seems to be dismantling itself. So it's as if the talent hotspots are starting to kind of reshape. And of course, now that we're used to working from home, working over Zoom and so on, these anticipated talent hotspots may never fully manifest, because it doesn't really matter where the talent is based. So I think we're starting to see that taking shape. I guess one of the things that I find mildly depressing is that, we were expecting the digital tsunami, and the biological one was a bit of a shock to me, COVID, also a shock to, the companies out there. But what they've done is they've tended to knee-jerk into a kind of defensive, let's go into hyper-efficiency mode. And even those that are looking forward are saying, okay, well, let's digitalize the existing factory model, so to speak. So they're throwing, AI and IoT, etc., at their model. But, that's, a faster Titanic at the end of the Titanic. So the idea of actually transforming to this new age of disruption isn't happening at the rate that I'd like to see. But I'm enjoying some of the messages that are coming out from some of the management consultancies around how we move forward.
Oh yeah. I mean, can you share any of those with us?
Yeah, the idea that you need to start thinking about building new business models, so to speak, not just your own. You've got your plan A, your old factory. Don't mess around with that. Don't put everyone on a design thinking course and hope that they'll pop out looking like Salvador Dali. That's not going to work. So start building new business models and running your organization as a portfolio of experiments, so to speak, which is something I've been pushing for some time as well.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I can remember you talking about that a lot. And also, we had David D'Souza, who always gets a name check, funnily enough, when we start talking about experiments, because that's his mantra as well from a learning perspective, which I think is great. You mentioned something in there Ade, that I found interesting was about sort of businesses actually having to pivot or do something about it. I don't know about you, but I still laugh now. Here we are. What, nine, maybe even, yeah, 9 months in. And it's still due to the pandemic, we're experiencing an unusually, it's like, okay, 6 months in, maybe I would have given you that, but 9 months, come on. There's plenty of people around. If you need more people in your call center, I'm sure you can find a few of them.
Yeah,
Gary,
I
what
think,
about you? Oh, sorry, Gade, go on.
no. I was just going to say something that we've got to get out of our heads is this concept of post-COVID, new
Yeah.
normal, next normal. It's chaos all the way now. We're getting it's compounding forces: digital tsunami, biological tsunami, political tsunami, innovation tsunami, race for natural resources, sustainability forces. All of these things are essentially conspiring to make the world unknowable. So what this means is that strategic plans are now a subgenre of fiction.
Yeah, no, it's funny. One of the conversations we've been having a lot with Richard Tyler is about this sort of um, the paradox of resilience. And so resilience, people, certainly latterly had been thinking about, or sort of originally, sorry, had been thinking about resilience is about holding on tighter. But I think in a world of ongoing chaos or constant chaos, actually resilience is about letting go as much as it is anything else. So I kind of like that. Gary, let me flip to you. And how's your world been in 2020?
Um, so I think one of the first things was let's start with something personal. So what did I find out in 2020? I found out I can run my life whilst completely disconnected, physically disconnected from the rest of the world, other than my wife and my children. I can work, exercise, order everything I need from my house, and in doing so, help Amazon, rocket its revenues. So that was a bit disappointing. But then I flipped it and I started to see, no, this is a real positive because it means that I have a level of resilience. So actually, should I break my leg, I can still keep working. Should I become unhealthy, I can still keep working. So there was a level of that. But I think picking up on something that Ade said, I think one of the things that I've been really frustrated by is organizations haven't seen this and used this as an opportunity to transform. What we've seen was a great opportunity to really recognize the changes that have been underlying for a long time now. This is a great opportunity to recognize the changes and in the environment, and then to make the changes within the company to be much more adaptable in the future, to be much more flexible. And I think when we saw the first lockdown for the first half, we saw a lot of organizations really trying to hold on to what they've got. They were putting plans in which were sticking plaster to get them through. However, I think what we've seen towards the end of the year is organizations are now really starting to make that much deeper change. So we are starting to see companies realize that it isn't going to be the new normal. It is going to be, or it is going to be a different environment, and it's going to continue to be different. You know, on a very functional level, a lot of organizations, a lot of businesses that were there 9, 10 months ago, they're not going to be there in the future. So supply chains are going to evolve. We're going to see a lot of this continue through 2021. But I think that the most frustrating thing has been the fact that no, I know when I say organizations, I don't just mean commercial organizations, but a lot have really held on far too long trying to resist making the changes and making the adaptations that leave them much better placed for the future.
Do you think, and,
So
and this is, we've got Jazz on the stream chat, and he's asking or saying that actually there's a difference here between the time it takes a large organization to react and what more smaller nimble organization do. Do you think there's an opportunity here now for smaller organizations to take the march and maybe to claim some territory back?
absolutely, yeah. I think that when you talk about large organizations, we'll do this one and completely dismiss it. The idea that it takes a super tanker, 5 miles to turn around, and it takes a long, long time. It does. Or you can attach some tugs to it and spin it on its axis. The reality is that these boats can turn around in a harbor. They can turn around on the spot. So when you see organizations use inertia or lack of the ability to change as a reason for not changing, this is an excuse. Take responsibility and make those changes. The reality is that whilst organizations have, it does take a while to do change and things are complex, they are also the ones with the deepest pockets and the resources to make things happen. So I'm not accepting that. However, this is a brilliant opportunity for small organizations to embrace this. A good example is small organizations should be knowing their customers far better than Amazon ever could. So it is an opportunity, but you have to put in that infrastructure. It isn't just a case of, hoping things are going to work and putting a website up. You've got to go to the next level of detail. You do have to start understanding how you're going to track those customer responses. And you are going to have those logistics. I mean, even in a small shop, you're going to have your inventory tracked to, related to your website, related to your physical presence. So you can't have orders come in and go, oh, really sorry, we've sold out of those t-shirts. That's not okay. So we're going to have to see a raising of the game here in smaller organizations, but there is absolutely an opportunity for them to very quickly catch up and potentially overtake.
Yeah, I'm going to come to you in a second because I can see you nodding, but it reminded me of there was a story I was reading about. Did you see the food delivery company in Norwich? And I'm kicking myself because I can't remember it. But basically, in a world where Just Eat and Deliveroo charge quite a large premium to small restaurants, and even if you've got a few outlets, it's quite a large premium. They just basically got together and they said, look, there's a £5 delivery fee that goes to the drivers and we'll deliver for you. And all of a sudden you've got this new business spun out of an opportunity that is a bit more nimble and a bit more commercially viable for smaller operators. And I just thought, I wonder if we're going to see like a real resurgence of that kind of entrepreneurism for people who've now got, are being forced to rethink the way they work. Ade, let me bring you in because I saw you nodding earlier. Is that the sort of this opportunity for smaller organizations or more agile organizations? Is that, you think, where we see the sort of things moving forward?
Well, I think, certainly some industries have just kind of are teetering on extinction, but within industries that will stay alive, and retail would be one of them, there's always an opportunity to fly below the radar of the likes of Amazon and, niche, and essentially, find a market you can own. And you don't necessarily have to be the biggest, you just have to be kind of, making an impact and making a profit at the same time. I was just thinking of Gary's point about what he's discovered his own sort of actual levels of self-resilience. I've discovered that actually I could get into small level crime because I could live quite happily in prison. I've got a great routine going, I can exercise locally and so on. So it's quite fascinating. You discover how you can actually live let's call it a diminished life, but, live it nonetheless.
I suspect you're probably a bit more relaxed in the shower, though. Sorry, couldn't resist.
I don't know what to do with that thought.
Yeah, no, let's move on. And just because they deserve a mention, it was the Norwich Urban Collective is the name of the food delivery company that spun up there. But no, I think you... Go on, Gary.
No, I think it's a great point. I think, one of the things we should be doing is we should see organizations see those, when we see those national services, look at those and go, how do we find the chinks? How do we find the gaps and exploit that? And this is where small businesses should be jumping in really quickly. There's nothing, we know that we're seeing large business ape this. There's nothing to stop a small business completely copying the business model and then innovating to improve it. It's what Ade said about the experimentation. Be honest about this. We're moving into this area. We don't know if it's going to work. We're going to try this. Then you build an ecosystem that everybody has an interest in making it work, but also has the expectation that any losses are going to be capped. So, with big organization, you've got contracts all over the place. Go back a bit, go to personal relationships where you can say, look, we're going to run this. Start to understand what the businesses want. The difference is if you're a restaurant and you want to use Deliveroo, not only are they going to give you a very contracted relationship, they're going to tell you in some cases what EPOS system to use, how to communicate. You have no control. What you're doing is you're actually ceding a lot of flexibility and power over the future of your business to an external party who has a lot of potential to cause you pain in the future if they start to change those rates, start to change those agreements. So I think small businesses should be embracing, collaborating, and working with other small businesses, and certainly not jumping into, what could be, where we see organizations shift to the position where they go from being highly distributed in terms of a customer base to being reliant on one delivery organization for maybe 40% of their income. That's a very risky position. So I think that's where we should see the local innovation come through.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's difficult, isn't it? Because the other side of the Deliveroo and Just Eat equation is, of course, the scale that you then get. So there's a quid pro quo with that. I think that needs to be worked through. I think for me, and the piece that is one of my reflections, maybe from 2020. And there's a bit of confirmation bias maybe in this as well, is I'm starting to see this really entrepreneurial spirit come out in people, and partly it's through this show, right? I get a number of people who have either come across what we're doing or are looking for an avenue to be able to talk about the ideas that they had, the businesses that they're trying to build, and sometimes in the case of Ollie, who's doing the Hum Not Drum, who came to see us. That was because of the challenge of the pandemic had changed the way that, his employment. He got made redundant as part of what was going on in his agency, and he spun up this new business. And so I think this sense of people recognizing that there is an entrepreneur within them, they've now been given an opportunity, forced in some cases, to really think about, what they've got to do to make that happen. But I think it's really difficult because there's almost this contrast, because I think confidence is a big conversation point, I think, in terms of reflection. And I think, a lot of people, myself included, certainly early on in the pandemic, had a lot of the confidence kicked out of us by the scale of the change that was going on. But as we've got further into this, and I think people have learned a bit more about, what's happening and how things are reacting, that confidence starts to creep back, and people, like you guys and like, a lot of the people we have on the show are starting to think, well, actually, I might be able to make a business out of this. So, and all you need is a couple of good clients to really get stuck into, and then you're on your way. So I do hope that people, through the personal and professional journey of 2020, are starting to think that there might be some opportunities inside 2021. I don't know. I mean, is that me? Because it's a bit of my world, right? So I would see it like that. Do you think I'm seeing that on my own, or do you guys sort of see that too?
I think it's true. I am seeing people actually leaving tethered employment and actually being overwhelmed by what to do next. So I can think of a CIO who is now driving a bus. I can think of a professional orchestral musician who's working in an Amazon depot, and perhaps they haven't seen ways to move slightly adjacent to what they're good at, as opposed to going totally unadjacent. I think for all of us, particularly those in tethered employment, it's an opportunity to reassess your career. In terms of the three axes, you might say, are money, impact, and freedom. And what we've discovered with working from home, it's given us more freedom in some sense. We're not spending all our time on a plane or on a train, so to speak. So with a kind of clever shuffling of those three variables, you could have your own little lifestyle business, none of the headaches of an unreasonable boss, and enjoy the freedom of steering your ship in whichever direction the winds take you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I need to just make a correction, because I realised that my addled old brain is wrong. I said Ollie, and I was thinking of his surname. It's actually Julian Orgill is the guy behind Hum Not Drum. So sorry about that, Julian. But, when you get to my age, I'm barely lucky if I can remember my own name, and never mind anybody else's. But anyway, so we'll move on. I think. Go on, Gary.
I'm just going to say, on the entrepreneurism thing, I think, what we're going to see, this is, I think we will go deeper into this on the next show, but there's something that's really going to come out here. This is one of the few routes that the UK is going to have to address this macro issue we're going to have with a lot of people not having the job that they want going into next year. We're going to see more businesses fail. We're going to see a lot of people, sadly lose their jobs. I think one of the changes that we do need to see, and if this is happening to you, you have my thoughts, and my concerns are certainly with you. But one of the things is we need to be driving entrepreneurism at the top of the company, at the top of the government. The one priority we should be doing nationally is going, what can we do to help Joe Smith start his business, to face less red tape, to get supported by the banks, to not be hounded by councils for legislative infringements, to enable the flexibility to be able to start new businesses. So if you're thinking about it, do not wait until the government gets on board. But I absolutely predict that it will. The government is going to push really hard on entrepreneurism because it's the only serious way that a lot of people are going to find their route out of this. Do not wait until businesses starts up again and starts looking for you. Get out there and start your business.
And I mean, I build on that, Gary, as well. And because one of the things that I've noticed, and again, all right, in my world, but the game has changed. I used to be, and this is your phrase, hunting and gathering for a living. You go and find the work, and you eat what you kill, I think was your phrase on a previous show. But I've realized now that the savannah is no longer, just my national borders. The savannah is the globe. And actually, it's hard, right? Because you've got to find a way to get into markets that you've historically not been in. But the very technology that's enabling us to do what we're doing now is the very technology that enables you to have a global presence and to deliver, projects internationally. And bizarrely, I've done more international work this year than I've done probably in the previous 5 years, simply because, and it's not just a cost thing, but it's the hassle factor for both sides, the client and me, completely goes away. The only thing I have to worry about now is time zones. Everything else is perfectly manageable. Maybe that's also because we're all remote, everybody's remote, and maybe that normalizes the playing field a bit. But I just think, if you're sat at home and you're thinking about the experience that you've had in 2020, and maybe it's been a bumpy one, and it's been, employment's been a challenge, or maybe the market shifted or whatever. I think this is the time now to reflect on those attributes that you've got, the skills that you've got, the fact that I think there's quite a willing market out there. People are much more interested and open to dealing with individuals, not with big corporations. They're recognizing that there's a lot of talent out there. And so I think this is a really great time. And to your point, Gary, and maybe we'll talk about it when we get to predictions in the next show, that there's going to be a lot more support and a lot more recognition of that. So this could be a sort of a new beginning for a lot of people. I get against, and we always have to say it, against the backdrop of the most terrible context. And it is horrible that we're here, and that what is happening to us, whether it's from a health perspective or an economic perspective, and lives are being destroyed in the process of going what we're going through. But at the same time, there are silver linings, and this isn't a drop the dead donkey, there's a dog in Kidderminster that can tap dance moment, but it's like, I think we owe it to the people who have been forced to suffer through this period to make the world a bit better, so that what they've been through hasn't been in vain. If we come out of this and we end up, I can't wait to go back to how it used to be, then I think so much of this loss will have been for nothing.
Yeah, I think absolutely. But I think there's a lot of mythology around entrepreneurism, in that, get my online business up and running and then just sit in bed and watch my account grow. Online businesses require a hell of a lot of work. And I see lots and lots of people on LinkedIn who have been thrust into a kind of, they're untethered from permanent employment. So they're now trying their hand at social media and positioning themselves, but they don't really understand positioning. They don't really understand how you use the different platforms to actually increase their circle of influence. They're basically just advertising and using the comments section to advertise. So there's a whole set of basics, positioning skills, and probably even commercial skills as well, to be learned. So it's not a simple case of, right, I'm redundant, what do I like? let's go after it. Yes, what you like is important, but there needs to be a market demand, and you need to be competent at it. If there is no market demand, what you've got is a very time-consuming hobby. So
Yeah.
getting all of these things right is not straightforward. So I just want to put in a word of caution. But if you regard the biggest investment as being the investment in your own entrepreneurial education, you will cut years off your path to success.
Yeah, I think that's a really valid point, Ade. I mean, these are hard yards. I mean, I can't remember, Gary will laugh, but I can't remember ever working as hard as I've worked in the last 9 months. And most of it just to spin up work, and work that I may not get. Do you know what I mean? Before we would work hard,
Yep.
but nothing like what it's like right now. And look, I'm not looking for anybody's sympathy, right? We're doing fine, and we're very, very lucky, and I appreciate that. But it is a recognition that this sort of entrepreneur malarkey is hard bloody work. You should have told me that before I started this, Ade.
Well, the thing is,
Go on, Ade.
No, I was just going to say that, I would have hoped coming up to my sort of fourth decade of work that I'd be in cruise control now, but I'm having to act as if I'm a fresh-faced grad, and acting as if, today could be my last day if I don't up my game, which
Yeah.
makes it much more exciting, but you need to have the energy levels for it.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess, I think two things are good and a bad. So it's been a while. I founded a company years ago and ran it, and it's hard. It's really, really hard. There are times when it's really, really worrying, but it's also rewarding. But I think, the learning curve is really steep. It is tough, but there's no better time to be able to learn and get access to the resources you're going to need to be successful. The first thing is use what's out there. So look for training, look for opportunities to learn, but also build your tribe, as Seth Godin would say. Find others who are supporting you. They may be in this country, they may not. So start to find that network. Also, if you're on LinkedIn, don't be shy about asking. As Ade said, don't be one of those guys who tries and sells himself in the comments. You're just going to really annoy people. But really be honest about what you can do, and don't be shy. I think that, as a country, Dave, have worked a lot with the States. We can certainly learn from those, from our American friends, about being positive about your own potential. Certainly, you have to go out with a very positive view of this happening. This isn't rose-tinted spectacles, but life is hard enough without thinking it's going to get, you're not going to be successful. You have to hit this with a very positive approach. If you can deliver something, if you can do something, don't be shy about putting that out there. The market will ultimately judge you, but you are going to have to promote yourself. You are going to have to understand how you start to allow people to find you. But the tools to learn that are there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Look, I'm just sort of looking at time, and I'm just conscious that I want to sort of keep these quite punchy. So I'm going to ask you, on a very personal level, your personal reflections of 2020. The things that you've learned about yourself and your way of working that have surprised you. Ade, if I throw that over to you, how do you feel about that?
I guess what I've been pleasantly surprised about is that I haven't had to wade through lots of expense receipts and so on. When you're doing a lot of traveling and staying in hotels and stuff, you've always got this kind of reconciliation. So my credit card bills are a lot simpler to reconcile. And it makes a strong case for keeping things as simple as possible, because to some extent we've got no choice. And the beauty of that is it frees up cognitive bandwidth, which you can then recycle back into having creative thoughts, thinking about new business ventures and so on. So I've actually, apart from being more or less disconnected from humanity, which is actually a very bad thing, it's simplicity is the way forward, in my view.
Yeah. And Gary, how about you?
So, what have I learned? So I joked about I can live disconnected. What I mean is I can function disconnected. I can't live disconnected. What I learned from this year was I really got a smack in the face about what's important in life in a really positive way. I've got, elderly family. I got a real wake up call of, about valuing them, protecting them. But I think also, I also learned how much I value human interaction, how important seeing people is, how important being outside is, how important exercise is. So what is my takeaway this year? The takeaway is really focus on that priorities, and we will come out of this. We will evolve through a whole range of the vaccine, behavioral changes, evolutions in the way we live. We will come out of this, but I think for me, I'm determined to take the positives out of this. And a couple of examples. One, absolutely book time for travel and to spend getting around and getting out. And the second one is to make sure that I'm locking in time with people, valuable time, that I'm not taking for granted the boozy long 3-hour lunch with a certain Mr. Dave Race in the South, which is great, pleasurable experiences. So as we start to look at these, we don't take them for granted. Well, we go, Dave, no, let's get this in the diary. Let's put this aside. That's important. I'm not going to let it slip. We've let these, you realize, it's 5 years since we've met. No, this is the priority. It's getting booked. So, as soon as I can get down to your area of the woods, let's go out to a good pub, have some good food, and, help the local hostelry get back on its feet. So for me, what I've learned, prioritization and what's important.
I love that. It's really funny because there are two things for, I guess, my learning is one about, Ade, it's your point about simplicity. I now need to know, what did I do that had me so busy that, I don't do now, and haven't missed, But second, more importantly, and I think this is your point, Gary, I found myself saying this word quite a lot. It's about being purposeful. So whatever you do, so if I'm going to have a call with Gary, I'm going to have a call with Gary. I'm not going to have a call with Gary and be catching up on my email or doing something else at the time. If I'm going to see my mum and dad, which inevitably will be over a video call, I'm going to see my mum and dad. And if I'm going to, spend time with my family, going to spend time at work, I'm going to be really purposeful about it. And I think that sort of sense of purpose and being really mindful about what we're doing will be one of the personal silver linings from all of this experience. So I'm going to call it time there. I want to say thank you again to Ade and Gary, not just for today, but for all of your support. But I know I'm going to get you back and we're going to do a pre-record and we're going to talk about predictions. So on that note, we're going to say goodbye to Ade and Gary. So thanks, gents.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
And all that remains for me to say is thank you so much for joining. Thanks, Jazz, for being with us. As always, it's always a delight to see you on the chat. I hope things are doing good with you. It's always a delight to see you as well. We love seeing you. And it's just fantastic to have you with us on this journey as we continue on. You know the drill. If you've enjoyed the content, give us a subscription, give us a like. If you haven't enjoyed the content, don't tell me, tell Gary. He deals with the complaints. I like to be blissfully ignorant of all of those things. It's been wonderful to have with us. We will see you all again next week. Thanks for joining.
There are 1,000 stories in the Envisioners' future. This is just one of them.